without sacrificing them to motherhood. She is a homeschool mom of 3, ages 8, 10, and 12, and wife for almost 15 years. Christine has served as an instructor in the Steve Harvey Success Institute for 4 years, where she taught blogging and social media for entrepreneurs. And her work has been featured in numerous local and national TV and media outlets, including but not limited to VOA, Fox 5 DC, News Channel 8, WBAL, WHUR, Madame Noir, Huffington Post, HuffPost Live, Black Enterprise, Sirius XM, Rolling Out, and Essence Magazine, amongst others. So please welcome Christine Saintville.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me and for putting this together. It's amazing.
Sure, my pleasure. So I'm going to allow you to take it away, Christine.
All right, thank you, Danielle. So hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here to chat with you guys today, and I'm looking forward to seeing your questions and being able to interact with you. And so I put together just, a few points that I wanted to kind of take away. Danielle mentioned that I am a homeschool mom of 3. So we started our homeschool journey when my son, who's the oldest, he's 12, he was going into kindergarten. And so, we decided, hey, let's just figure out, if we can do it now, see what happens. And so, he was going to a private preschool initially. But because he and my middle child have a late birthday, we decided, they would have had to wait a whole nother year to start kindergarten. And so we decided at that point, let's just try it, see what happens. And so we just decided to take it one day at a time. And, for us, it was a decision of what do we want our lives to look like? What do we want, in the future? If we want to travel, if we want to do different things, how can we set it up? And so I think one of the things that, especially now, with everyone being forced into homeschooling, I just wanted to pull together just some tips and some ideas and some things that I've shared even, recently on Fox 5, where I was asked to just share some tips for those who were being forced into homeschooling. And I can share some resources definitely at the end of this chat as well. But, for being able to juggle all of these things that we do, right? Juggling motherhood, juggling, being a caregiver, juggling, working from home, because a lot of parents are still working from home as well. I have several friends that are, in that predicament where they're having to homeschool and they're also having to work. And so how do you pull all of these together? One of the things that, Danielle mentioned in my bio, known as a fly mom coach. So when I first started my blog in 2012, I wanted to use it as a tool to empower moms to go after their dreams, in addition to being a great mom. Because what I found being a newly stay-at-home mom at the time was, being inside Facebook groups, moms a lot of times would talk about all of these things they wanted to do, whether it was, starting a business, whether it was, taking their hobby and turning into their passion into, something that they could actually thrive on, whether it was going after, another job, another opportunity. But a lot of times they were saying how they had to wait. They had to wait for their kids to start school. They had to wait for their kids to, graduate from high school. And so Moms in Charge became a platform where I wanted to empower moms to say, hey, why do you have to wait? Why can't you do both, right? Why can't you be a mom and go after your goals and dreams? Why can't you, go after goals and dreams and still be, an excellent mom and caregiver to your children? And so that's why I started that platform. And early on, I saw a quote that gave me pause, and that kind of became my mantra because it was something that I needed for myself. And I think that it's relevant, especially now, because we're being thrown into this situation where we have all of these competing priorities, right? And so that quote was FLY, and FLY is an acronym that stands for First Love Yourself. And underneath that quote is said, everyone else comes after. And what I learned at the time, because, I was working in corporate, I left my job in 2011 when I was pregnant with my 3rd child and became a stay-at-home mom, started my blog in 2012. And I went through a period of postpartum depression. And one of the things that I realized in that time period was that I wasn't taking care of myself, that, I lost my identity to motherhood, right? I lost my identity to being a wife. And so I had to learn how to figure out who I was. What are the things that I wanted to do? What are the things that I stood up? What are the things that I enjoyed doing even before I became a mom, before I became a wife? Because those things are what fueled me. Those things are, the things that brought me joy, so that as long as I was filling my own cup up, as long as I was taking care of myself, I was going to be able to take care of my kids better. So that is one of the biggest things that I think that, even now we forget to do in the midst of chaos, in the midst of these times that are uncertain and we don't know what's happening from day to day. It's, figuring out, okay, I have to figure out how to take time for myself to decompress, to to get away from the distractions and all of the things that are going on right now, because there is a lot going on. And so it's one of those things that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna adopt this fly mom mantra, because I want other moms, I want other caregivers, women, to understand that it's important to take care of yourself first. It's important to understand, not only take care of yourself first, but to not feel guilty about it, right? And so that became one of the things that, was important for me. And one of the things that I was like, okay, let me include this in what I'm doing. And so some of the tips that I want to share with you guys today, so definitely, write these down, figure out how you can incorporate them as well. But really think about it in terms of juggling. So I don't like to use the word balance, because I feel like when you use the word balance, people have this image of everything being even, right? And so we know that if you're giving 100% of your attention to something, that means that there's something else that's not getting your attention. So if you're working from home, or you are now trying to homeschool your kids, you're trying to work either, on your business, or, whatever that is, you're going to have competing priorities. So the goal is to figure out how to juggle. I also like the word harmony. People use harmony, but how can you create, something where you're able to juggle these different things, so that you don't feel like you're being pulled away. You don't feel like you're overwhelmed all the time. Of course, there's going to be periods of overwhelm, but understanding how to deal with it, you'll be able to come out of it a lot quicker. So that would be the first thing, is just making sure that you are taking care of yourself, right? Making sure that you are, being okay with it and not feeling guilty about it. So one of the things that helped me early on was understanding that anything that I was doing to better take care of my kids, to better take care of my husband, my marriage, anything that I did in that perspective was for the better. And so there wasn't anything to feel guilty about if I'm taking this time for myself, but I know that when I leave for an hour and I come back, I'm going to be happier. I'm going to have been able to get some breathing in on my own without being pulled in 3 different directions, right? And so if I know that I'm going to be a better person for whatever it is that I'm doing right now, then that allowed me to kind of remove the mom guilt around it, which so many of us deal with. So that was one of the things, one of the things even now when I talk to my friends who are like stressed out about, the distance learning and, all of these things that we're dealing with right now, is letting go of the need to be perfect. I think so often we have this idea of what everything is supposed to be like. And, especially now, like we know that they had a certain schedule. If they're going, to school, they have a certain schedule that this is what they follow. How do we kind of pull all of that together, right? And so we try to make sure that everything aligns. And when it doesn't, we get frantic, especially now with social media. I work in social media. That's, one of my main things with purpose-driven media is we work with clients to, help boost their brands on social media. But one of the things that we realize is that there's so much out there that when you look into it, it makes you feel inadequate because you're looking at what everybody else is doing. And so you're, especially now you see, one mom got everything color coded and everything perfect. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I had this together. Like I need to start from scratch. So let go of the need to be perfect so that you can understand that, nobody is perfect out there. Like we all have our days where, we might be on, in homeschooling one day and then the next, we're not rocking it over there, but we might be rocking it in our businesses. And I think when we understand that there is no such thing as being perfect. Like, you just have to figure out what works for you. And what we realized early on, especially with our kids, one, they're all different. They all learn very differently. And two, we had to also understand that, like, what one thing might work for one child may not work for another. So we had to figure out, okay, this program worked well for him. Why is it not working for them? How do we, figure out how to make it work? So being adaptable and understanding that you have to give yourself grace. And I think that all ties in with the FLY mantra of first loving yourself, because you learn to give yourself grace. You learn to understand, like, okay, you know what? Nope, I don't have it together. And it's okay. We're going to start again tomorrow, right? And so I think that's definitely one of the things that we have to think about. Okay, letting go of the need to be perfect, because things happen all the time, right? The other thing that I would say is learning how to make it fun. So I think, one of the things that I told a lot of parents, early on is like, hey, listen, if you understand, like, we don't always understand what our kids are into. We got TikTok, like that is the big thing. My girls want to do TikTok. They were begging me for a TikTok account for a long time. And I was like, no, but because of the work I do, I was like, you know what? I'm going to create an account. It's going to be on my phone. And then, you guys can help me figure out and learn how to use it. So then I can also help my clients. It's a win-win. But I had to also figure out, okay, if this is what they like, how can I make it fun for them, right? So couple times I had them help me teach me one of their dances, and we did it together. But it helps to build that connection with our kids because they see that their interests are important, right? So we may not always understand what they like, what they're interested in, or why they're interested in certain things. But I've learned that, hey, if I can show interest in what they're doing, one, they're going to open up to me a lot more. Two, I can figure out how can I incorporate this into, their schoolwork, or how can I incorporate this into, incentivize them into maybe getting a project done that they haven't done yet. Maybe they're falling behind. We just had a conversation with our kids because they had fallen behind in some of their subjects. And we're like, okay, we're not going to do technology until you get to this point. We have to take away phones, the laptops, what are the things that we can do? So making it fun. Like, they like TikTok. My daughter, my 10-year-old, loves to sew. So, starting to ask her, okay, what do you like to do, right? What do you like to sew? So she's found YouTube videos that show her how to make doll clothes and different things like that she just goes, does whatever she wants. She's found, old clothes that she's turned into doll clothes. So how can you make it fun? How can you figure out, what your kids like to do, what they're, what brings them joy, right? Because when you can find those common grounds, then you're able to do that. Our youngest is a gymnast. So, we've been able to find a coach that's based in Atlanta who's been doing online gymnastics workouts, right? And so this allows her to, see other gymnasts, to kind of work out with them, even though they're not physically in the same space. So again, while I may not understand everything that they like to do, I try as much as possible to say, hey, well, what is it that you like to do? What does that mean? One of my, sons, he has a favorite YouTuber. And so, he was showing me that he kept doing this dance that I was like, okay, what is that dance? And I had him teach it to me. He was laughing at me, clowning me a little bit, but I had him teach it to me. Again, to build that bond, to build that common ground. And then what I did was I shared us doing the dance together, and I tagged his favorite YouTuber on Instagram and stories. And then that person shared. And then of course I won cool mom points because he was able to, I was able to connect with someone that he enjoyed, watching, and who actually is a great role model and creates great content. So how can you make it fun in terms of juggling, all of these things with homeschool, with, being at home now with everything that's going on? Try to find ways to make it fun for both you and your child so that they can, trust that you see that you have an interest in what they're doing. And then when it comes time to do the hard work that they don't really want to do, they'll have an easier time doing it because they see that, you guys are able, that you guys are able to bond on common ground. So I would definitely say that. And then taking time out for yourself. So I kind of talked about that with the fly mantra, but I think it's so important right now to figure out how you can take time out for yourself. One of the things that I had to learn early on when I was trying to figure out how do I practice the mantra of fly, first love yourself. And one of the things that I had to really get, hone in and get in the habit of was saying no. So often we say yes to so many things and so many other people because we're used to it, because we really want to be able to serve, we want to be able to help other people. But what we don't realize is that we continue to fill our plate so much that there is no time to do anything else. And then we're left with, leftovers. We're left with feeling depleted. We're left with feeling overwhelmed and stressed because there's just not enough time in the day to get everything that we need to get done. So once I started learning, how to say no to certain things, how to understand, is this something that I need to do right now? Or is this something, is this my emergency or is this someone else's emergency that they are portraying on me? And once I figured out how to start saying no, I actually was able to open up more space on my own calendar so I can put myself on my calendar. So what I tell people is to treat yourself as your own VIP client, right? So what does that look like? That means for me, if it's not on my calendar, it's just not getting done. So I have to make sure that I put it on my calendar. I have to make sure that, and it can look different for everyone. Early on when I was first starting back in 2012, 2013, 2014, when they were young babies and toddlers, that looked like me telling my husband, hey, I need to go, take a drive. And I may have just gone and sat in the parking lot of a coffee shop and just, had my own thoughts, had my own time, able to relax, able to breathe. That may look like calling up a best friend and having a conversation, talking to them because you don't have time to talk to them anymore, right? And so you have to figure out what does that look like for you and be okay with taking that time out for yourself. So I just make sure that now I put it on my calendar. One of the things that I did and still do now is I put on my calendar when I'm planning out, the months and the years, like I try to put on the calendar a do nothing weekend. And so that means that if anything comes up last minute, unless it's like urgent, I have to say no, because that's my weekend to do nothing. That's my weekend to decide, hey, if we want to have a movie night, or if we just want to relax in the house, or if we just, don't want to do anything planned, that's my weekend to rest. That's my weekend to unwind. So, but you have to be able to be committed to yourself. You have to commit to yourself that this is what I'm going to do. This is what, I feel is important. And so what that allowed me to do is say, you know what, I do. When things open up or when I have time, I'm more refreshed and I'm able to do things and say yes to people and things without depleting, from myself and without taking away from my family as well. So I think when you are able to kind of decipher those things, it helps to create, that harmony in your life. It helps to, be able to kind of balance those things as well. So I would definitely say, make sure that you put that on your calendar, because if it's not on your calendar, it's not going to get done. One other tip that I would share is about avoiding, the quarantine meltdown, the homeschool meltdown, whatever you want to call it, especially if you have younger kids. This is really, really important. But I think one of the things that we forget is that, our children are going through their own type of stress. They, some kids may be handling it better than others on the outside, but they may be dealing with different things on the inside in terms of being pulled away from their friends, from, their activities. I mentioned, my daughter's in gymnastics, my son was playing basketball, they're also in martial arts. So not being able to do these things and being suddenly pulled away, there's a lot that comes into that. And so when you're, sitting down or you're planning your days and, you're getting irritated or aggravated because maybe they're not paying attention, maybe they're acting up, part of that may be, because of stress, and this is how they're dealing with it. So one of the things that we started, doing just to get away from technology, we actually, we've always had like old school board games and things like that, but we started really, really making it a priority. So we have chess, we have Monopoly, we have Scrabble, we, other games that we can, Uno, one of our favorite games, Uno. The great thing about these games is that majority of them, they also teach our kids. So, we're playing Scrabble. We are definitely learning a whole lot of new games. A whole lot of new words in that game, because that's what Scrabble is. You got to figure out, it helps you to be strategic. It teaches them patience. My kids actually have been playing chess for a while. They were actually on a chess, they were going to a chess school and doing tournaments and things like that. But, kind of got away with it once, the little one started gymnastics, and then, martial arts picked up. But chess is a great, great tool. And so when we see that there is, some unrest, maybe they're getting distracted easily, maybe they're just not into whatever the written works and assignments that we're doing, we have all of these games, handy, and we will take those out. We'll be like, okay, it's Monopoly time. Guess what? We're going to learn about, real estate. We're going to learn about counting this money. We're going to learn about making sure you understand how much money you have, what you're able to do. But all of these are life lessons and things that they can learn from as well. So when it comes to, if you see your kids having a meltdown, chances are it's time to take a break. And, having a plan of action when it's time to take these breaks are a great thing to have. And so that plan of action, again, maybe they like to draw, maybe they like to color. If you have an artist, keep some, construction paper around, some pencils, some pens, markers, crayons, whatever that the case may be, and have those around. So, hey, we're going to take a break. Here's what it is. We're going to, draw, color, allow them to kind of navigate. Okay, what do you prefer? You want to play chess? You want to play Scrabble? Like, which one? Scrabble is a long game. That game can take forever depending on how many people are playing. So, have a timeline for, what this is. But we found that when they get restless, trying to force them into doing, their work or doing their chores or whatever it is that we're trying to get them to do, it actually makes the situation worse. Emotions escalate a lot more when we do that. And so we decided, okay, how can we incorporate some of the games? And these are all learning games. One of the other things, not a learning game, but this situation has allowed me to kind of go back in time and figure out, okay, what was I doing? What are the games that I was playing when I was younger that I enjoyed? And so, I'm teaching the girls how to double dutch. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. Going bike riding. What are the things that you can do that don't involve, technology? So we try to get them away from the tech as much as possible as well. And part of that is having something in place, right? Having a system in place. So, putting all of these board games together, what does that look like? Asking them, what do they want to learn? We ask our kids as much as possible. And, they're still a little bit younger, so they're not exactly sure, but we try to help, encourage them to think for themselves and to understand, okay, what do you want to learn? Let us know what you want to learn so we can help you to kind of cultivate that, right? So those are kind of some of the things that, we look into. And then finally, one of the tips that I would share, and then I'll also share some resources as well, is leaning on your village and your community as much as possible. So early on, I understood the power of, the whole saying that it takes a village, to raise a child. And I absolutely wholeheartedly agree to that. I am one of 7 children. There are 14, 15 nieces and nephews in the family, and we are all local. So I've always understood the importance of having a village, right? I'm number 6 out of 7. So, I was able to kind of help babysit a lot with my nieces and nephews, and just understanding, like, asking for help is important, right? It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you, anything less. It makes you human to ask for help and say, hey, I need a break. How can you swap services with someone? How can you, provide that support to other people? And so I've always been able to kind of just say, well, not always, but I had to learn how to lean in on my village, right? And that village for us has looked like, not only just family, but it could be, friends, right? Our co-op, we've always been a part of a homeschool co-op that, we lean on. So, for certain subjects or for certain things, we're able to come together, in the co-op and support each other. Our kids are able to decide, okay, this is what I want to learn. These are the things that I want to do more of. Before everything shut down, they were enjoying a robotics class that they got to build different things in, dance class and different things like that. But we kind of, leaned in on the community and figured out like, okay, what do you guys like to do, and help and allow the kids to kind of drive that conversation. So we're not just putting them in things that they have no interest in, but we're finding out what is your interest and how can we build on that to help you then, learn some of the other, things that you're doing, some of the other subjects that we're discussing and we're doing, in homeschool as well. So I wanted to, just kind of do a quick rundown of some of the things we talked about. And then I have several resources that I'll kind of share in terms of what we've been able to use, but then also what I've been able to share in certain companies and things that have allowed access to families and individuals to help us during this time of the pandemic, to kind of help streamline some things and make things a little bit easier. So just to recap, like in terms of juggling, tips on juggling, all of your responsibilities, whether you work from home, corporate, or you run a business, and then also trying to homeschool. So one of the first things I talked about, the FLY mantra, which is first love yourself. And so the first thing was letting go of the need to be perfect and understanding that it's okay to not have all the answers, right? It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to lean in, right? So let go of the need to be perfect. There is no perfect. I say, figure out what works for you and then do that, and not feel like if someone is giving you their schedule because it works perfectly for them and then you try it and it does not work for you, that doesn't mean that, you're a failure or that, this is not for you. It just means that you have to figure out another way to do things. And I'll just share, like, we used a program, I think it was Baby Can Read, for our oldest two. And, my 10-year-old was reading before she was 3. We have a video of her like reading, flashcards and like small, very short sentences. And, we had that, but then with the youngest, none of that worked. We had to revamp the whole entire thing. She's very, someone that needs hand holding, someone that needs a lot of, working together with her, but we had to figure that out, and so it came from trial and error. Like, okay, this doesn't work, we're going to try something else. This worked for one child, it didn't work for another, but, asking other people, like, what works for you. So make it fun. Number 2, make it fun. How can you incorporate what your child is interested in into their learning, right? If they're into, for example, video games. I'll use video games because I know a lot of, kids are into video games. With our son, it was like, okay, we found a subscription site for video games and he wanted to launch a YouTube channel. We're like, okay, well, what's the purpose? If you want to do reviews, let's do the subscription site so that you can get a new video game every month. You'll review it, you'll put together your content, and then, we'll keep sending it back. But there was kind of like an end goal. So it's his passion, but there also had to be, okay, how can we make this work? And so now we're trying to figure out a way to incorporate that into their curriculum, because he's actually putting together content around it. So how can you make it fun for your kids? And the more that you can figure out how to find that common ground, the easier it will be to kind of navigate, the things that they actually have to do, the studies they have to actually do, and things like that. The third one was taking time out for yourself, making it a non-negotiable. Like, I know it sounds crazy and it's like, how do you even do that? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can find the time in your day. I know for a fact social media sucks up a lot of our time. Watching the news sucks up a lot of our time. Take that time that you're using and figure out how you can just do something for yourself. Like, whether it's taking a bath, whether it's going out for a walk, what can you do for yourself and how can you treat yourself as your own VIP client? The fourth one was avoiding the quarantine meltdown, meaning if they are, having an issue, if you see the meltdown coming, if you feel like they're just restless, they're not doing their work, they don't want anything to do with it, chances are it's time for a break. And so how can you have other activities outside of work, traditional work, like board games, that they can also learn from? And I have, a link to several that I listed, but, Uno, Scrabble, Monopoly, chess, these are all great games that they can learn from and actually do. And the final one was leaning on your village and your community. So I know even now, we can't all get together, but we have platforms like this where you can invite, your friends and family, you can connect, right? What is it? I have a group every other week. We get on and just connect, talk about, our wins, talk about our struggles, talk about our challenges, ask for tips, ideas, ask for prayers and different things like that. So don't be afraid, to do that. And don't think that because no one else has reached out to you that they don't need it. Chances are they're not even thinking about it, right? They're just trying to go, and don't realize that this connection is still very, very important. So those are the tips. And then I'll just share some quick resources for you guys that I have, and I can share the link a little bit later as well. But I have a post with 50 plus resources, but I want to share just a few right now that we have been able to use, that we also have recommended as well, and some that people are actually able to, incorporate now because companies are trying to find ways to support families in this pandemic and in this distance learning situation that we're all in right now. So one of them, if you're not familiar, is Scholastic Inc. And we have been, we used them early on. They used to have this program that we were able to get monthly workbooks for the kids where they were learning the states. So that whole workbook was about the state. And so at the end, they had to collect all of the workbooks and all of the, different things about the states. And so Scholastic has a free virtual learning resource center for grades K through 9. And so it's 20 days of learning across all areas, and it's completely free. So that's in here. And then of course we're using Zoom. And so this is another resource that was given, that they announced that K through 12 students would have video conferencing tools for free. So just make sure that, you have the right parameters in place. If they're getting on Zoom, there's passwords and all of those things to make sure that the security is okay. And then Audible, if you weren't aware, Audible for Amazon, they also announced that they cancel subscriptions of their books and audio stories. So basically anyone can log on, and all stories are free to stream right from your desktop, laptop, phone. So this could be a great break when it's time to, take those breaks. You can say, hey, let's log into Audible and listen to some stories. Here are the options. Let them pick the stories that interest them. Let them, decide, okay, here's these stories that interest me. And then have those. So maybe you can come up with a list of the stories that they want to listen to. And, when you have those breaks, you already have the list and you're not having to look through. So you can do that at the beginning of the week. And that way you have the list. So when it's time for that break, it's there. So there's a lot of resources in terms of online printables, free online printables, worksheets, different curriculums and things like that. So if you're looking to supplement, if maybe your county doesn't have everything together. I was talking to a friend of mine, literally, that they still haven't gotten laptops for her kids for their school, and so she had to go get some out. And so a lot of these platforms, there's a bunch, but I'll just name a few. Of course, a lot of people probably know about Khan Academy, Super Teacher Worksheets, especially when my kids were younger. And I still go in there now for some things, but you can go on there and look at whatever subject you're looking for, and they will have a plethora of worksheets. I don't know what it is about worksheets, but my kids love the worksheets, especially the girls. They love the worksheets. So we have workbooks and different things like that. All-in-one homeschool.com is another one that has just everything you can think of. They have it. So there's a few others. And then those are just like more so online printables. And then I also have a section for podcasts and blogs. So there's definitely some podcasts and blogs that, this is what they do. Their focus is on resources in terms of helping our kids and different things like that. Homeschool, and our kids in particular. So Cleverly Changing podcast is one. Fair of the Free Child is another. Keep Calm and Homeschool on podcasts. So definitely, kind of look at some of these things because there's a lot of different resources and different platforms. So, as you're cooking or whatever, maybe you can listen to some of these things as well. And then we have Facebook pages and groups. Facebook groups are definitely one of the things that I leaned in a lot to early on, and still go in and check with different Facebook groups in terms of what people are looking. So there's a ton of Facebook groups for us: Black homeschool families, melanated homeschool family support group, African American homeschool families. There's a DMV Black homeschoolers group. So many different groups with awesome people who are there willing to share and help us all, in this journey and create these different tools and resources that we need for ourselves and our families. And then, just a few things to keep in mind, like, again, just giving yourself grace through all of this, like it's going to be okay. I know, a lot of people may, be in difficult situations, but just understanding that you're not alone in this situation. And so that's why I created this resource of all of these things, just so people can understand, hey, there's so much out here. There are people rooting for you, willing to help, extend a hand and do whatever they need to help you. And so take advantage of some. I won't say go and look at everything, because then you'll drive yourself crazy. It might be a little bit overwhelming, but figure out what are the resources that you need right now, and then go find those resources and only focus on those resources, because there's going to be more resources than you know what to do with or that you care to do anything with. And so just figure out before you even start going into, some of these groups and listen to these podcasts, like sit down and figure out, what does my family need right now? What do my kids need right now? What area, do they need to supplement? Do they need more help in? And then decide, okay, let me focus in on that. Let me drill in on that and figure out how I can help them. And just understanding, like, you got this, right? It may not feel like it every day. You may not, understand every day, what from one day to the next, but just understanding, like, there are so many of us out here that are rooting for you, myself included, to, make sure that, you're supported. And so, as much as possible, I try to share, content and resources as well. And I'm definitely, someone, if I don't have the answer, I know someone who does. I was able to early on connect with women who I saw were doing this, right? They homeschooled their kids through high school, got them into college, full scholarships for some, military for others. And so for me, it was about, okay, show me, the different steps. So if I don't know the answer, I'm going to someone who does, who can help me get to that next step. So wherever you are, just understanding and figuring out what is the best next step that I need to take for myself, for my children. And then let me focus on that. Let me find that one or two, resources that will help me get to that next step. So that is where I am. I think I'm just about out of time. I don't know if Danielle's going to come back on and do Q&A, but hopefully these tips and, resources will be helpful for you. Like I said, I will share the link to these resources. It's 50 plus resources, and I categorize them based on, subject. So whether it was online printables, whether it was podcasts and blogs, whether, it was Facebook groups and communities, I wanted to make sure that I kind of segmented the list so that you can find, what it is that you need. So I'm so grateful for you guys spending this time with me, and I'm looking forward to our Q&A.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Christine, for all of those fantastic tips. You have like a fabulous outfit to go along with it. So we know you are taking care of yourself, which is wonderful. So our first question comes from Jess. She was wondering if you could please share the information regarding the gymnastics coach. that you met?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you can message me on Instagram, I'm at Moms in Charge, no I, and I will send you his email. He is, I'm drawing a blank, but I can look him up if you want to answer this question. But he does weekly classes. It's 5 to 6 classes. My daughter is a level 6 gymnast. And so, but he does, the workouts he does are, basically for all levels of gymnastics. So yes, I will definitely, let me look up his information right now and I will get that to you. And then you can also inbox me and I can send you the information to register for his classes. But he is on Instagram at _Gymgineer. And he used to be an engineer. So that's where that comes from.
That's very cute. We have another question that comes from Karan, who's asking, are there any subjects you teach that are not typically offered at a traditional school? Because I know that you're a mother who homeschools, so
yeah,
outside of the box.
So that's a great question. One of the things, and I don't think I really went into it, but one of the things that I realized and why I started the blog as well was because I knew that at that point in time, with my kids being toddlers, going into preschool and then kindergarten, that there was going to be that conversation about what do you want to be when you grow up? And then them, me telling them you can be anything you want to be. And then, well, am I doing what I want to do? And am I being who I want to be? And so what we don't realize is how much our kids are watching us. And so, that I've always kind of brought my kids into what I do, in terms of blogging, in terms of, the work that I do. And so that kind of inspired, my daughter to become a mini kidpreneur, entrepreneur. She was able to be a co-author, a couple years ago with 22 other kidpreneurs. And so for us, like, we definitely try to incorporate what does entrepreneurship look like. Okay, recently with, all of this going on, she had a lot of requests to make masks. So what we did is we partnered with her sewing teacher to just focus on ones for kids. But then, it was about, okay, let's talk about understanding your inventory. Let's look at your inventory. What does that mean? What does that look like? Walking through those steps. And, I even with Instagram, she has an Instagram account, but for that account, like, I give her the phone to respond to people. So it's teaching them, how to communicate online, how to formulate, these sentences. So we definitely incorporate, some of those lessons as well. And, we do a lot of, I think public speaking is taught, but it's not really done probably till later. But our kids have pretty much always done public speaking in some kind of format, even in their co-op last year, Black History Month, they had to do poster board presentations and present that in their homeschool classes. With the girls, they started a YouTube channel. So now they're learning video editing. Well, really, she's teaching herself. She's finding these apps and learning how to, do video editing as well, and doing videos and different things. So I would say, like, those are kind of like some of the things that we kind of hone in on, as far as like non-traditional, what does that look like if you want to start a business, if you want to, do, this over here, what does that look like? And so we've been able to do that, with them not being in their co-op, they're not able to kind of do robotics. So, my son, we were able to find this robotics kit where he was able to program it, with an app on his phone. So just trying to figure out how we can, incorporate some of the things that they probably wouldn't either be doing till later as they got older, or that they, probably wouldn't be doing at all in school. Hopefully that answers that.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Thank you so much, Christine. So
Sure.
we have a question from Jennifer. She says that she has 3 boys, ages 4, 6, and 8, and they love being active, sports like basketball and soccer, etc. And she's wondering if you had any tips on how to help them enjoy activities indoors, especially while parks are closed during this time.
Yes. So I would definitely, if you inbox me, I can reach out to some people too, but I would look for online classes. We had the same issue with my daughter. Our gym was not offering online workouts until just now. And so luckily I was following different coaches, and this one just happened to be one that we were following because she is everyone's like, okay, boys are, my son was not flipping around. It was my youngest, who's a girl, that was flipping off couches, jumping and tumbling and everything. So we had to find something for her. And now like this online community where we're able to, you know, connect. And I think I have a friend that was able to find one for her son that does, he does football, basketball, but finding something, I think that also that connection, but finding like some classes online, some are even offering them for free. So, or for little, like I think our classes are only $5 a class. So definitely look into those types of classes. Our kids, you know, there's a big open field that we will drive to and just let them, you know, my niece plays softball. So we'll go out there, we'll hit the ball, let them run around till they tire themselves out as well. You know, what can we do? We're also very, you know, we work out a lot. So when my husband gets them on a schedule and gets them working out, gets their body moving. So as much as possible, you know, things like that. But if you inbox me on Instagram, I can reach out to people that I know who are doing other activities and see if they can give me that information as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine.
You're so welcome.
We have another comment / question from Paula, and she says that she really is enjoying this time, and she's so appreciative of all the helpful tips that you've provided. And she's wondering if you could please repeat your motto again.
Yes, absolutely. So it is FLY. FLY is an acronym for first love yourself. And then after the verbiage after that is that everyone else comes after. Everyone else comes after you, because the fact of the matter is, if we're giving away everything that we have, there's nothing left for us. And then we can't take care of the people that we want to take care of. So we want to make sure that we first love yourself.
Most definitely. It's like what they say on the airplane, putting the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Absolutely. It makes so much sense now. Yeah, it's hard to kind of put into practice. That's why you have to make a habit out of it. And that starts small. You know, that starts with, okay, let me take these 5 minutes. Let me understand. You know, I tell people we aren't ones that ever really had an issue with our kids just barging in rooms and stuff, because we've had to set boundaries. So maybe that FLY, that loving yourself means setting boundaries for your kids, you know, letting them know if you see this door closed, like mommy is having a moment, mommy's taking time, you have to knock and you have to wait for me to answer. Unless it's an emergency, the house on fire, something like that, like, you know, this is mommy's time. So we kind of educated them on that early on, to the point where, like, if they see the door closed, like, they just knock and they'll wait.
That's awesome. Those are definitely nuggets of wisdom. So Jennifer, she circled back and she said, that sounds great. How can I inbox you? I'm not the mom who uses Instagram much.
So if you're on Facebook, I'm at Moms in Charge, my Facebook and Instagram, whichever one is more comfortable for you. Feel free to do that. You can message me on either platform. So if Facebook is easier for you to get to, my Facebook page is Moms in Charge, no I, and you can just send me a message on there and I'll get the information for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine.
You're welcome. Do you want me to share the link in here, or is there a platform or somewhere else?
You can definitely share it if you want in the chat box. That's not a problem. Okay. And that'll be sent to all of our attendees.
Perfect.
So great. So participants, if you have any additional questions for Christine, we'd love to hear them by using the Q&A option. It looks like two like talking bubbles at the bottom of your screen. We would love to hear from you, and she'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. But as we are discussing, I know you've, set, these boundaries in place, which is wonderful. Like, being proactive is so much easier than being reactive. But what about those parents that maybe, they need kind of like a restart? Like, how can they restart in terms of setting those boundaries if for some reason, it could be potentially the pandemic and just all of the uncertainty that's, occurred over the past couple of months? How can they press that reset button in their household to reset, and reestablish rather those boundaries with their children if they've already, been, passed?
Out of whack. Yeah, that's a great question. So what I would say, number one, is to have a conversation with your children. I think so often we're just used to saying, stop talking, don't do this. don't do that, I'm working. But we don't give our children like the why behind what we're doing, or we don't, kind of communicate to them, the importance of why we need them to be quiet, right? Of course, before I went on, I had to have a conversation with my kids and, hey, like, I'm gonna need y'all to be quiet. Like, I'm going to be doing this live. This is what I'm doing. But explain it to them, hey, I'm doing this, this virtual summit. This is what we're talking about, but not just brushing it off as because I said so, So having that conversation with your kids, and as far as like resetting those boundaries, practicing, like, because you want your kids to grow up understanding healthy boundaries, understanding, when people have crossed the line and not accepting that. And so this is a way for you to kind of teach them that. So if you're teaching them, okay, listen, if somebody does something, I had to have a conversation with my daughter because she has a friend that they're always, bumping heads. And, her friend is always, seems to be rude and say different things. And I'm like, well, someone who's your friend, just because they keep apologizing and they're doing the same thing, that doesn't make it okay. That doesn't mean that you have to keep accepting this behavior. And so having that conversation, so she understands, like, someone treating you badly and just coming back and saying, I'm sorry, and then you accepting it, like, that's not okay. Same as, hey, if you tell somebody to stop doing something and they're not stopping and you've asked them repeatedly, that's not okay. So kind of using those conversations to say, hey, this is what I expect. I know that, we kind of have done this, but the reason I close my door, the reason I say, I do, because I need some time to do X, Y, and Z. What does that look like? The more that we can be transparent with our kids so that they understand, not only will it be better for them to understand, but also as they get older, these are life lessons that they'll take with them. So they may not understand it now, but trust and believe that as they get older, they'll definitely understand it. I mean, I remember when I started doing this and started, talking to my son, even he was probably about, 6 at the time, like, he would start asking me, when I would leave to go out somewhere, are you going to go do your mommy thing? And so it was building that conversation with him and with the kids to understand, like, this is, why I'm doing what I'm doing. As far as like my blog, they've gotten some amazing opportunities to be able to go to Disney, to be able to go to beaches and Turks and Caicos. But I had to explain to them, well, when I'm up and when I'm working and when I'm asking you to take pictures and all this, it's because we get to do this, right? So you better believe when I ask them to take pictures, like, they don't have any problem because they know, like, they're getting these packages in the mail, they get to do this. So understanding, like, our kids they need a little bit more in terms of the why. Why do we need to give you space? Why do we need to be quiet? Why do, if you're quiet, like, I'm trying to talk to a client because mommy is trying to, help this client, and then this client can pay mommy. And then if we get this and, that thing that you want, then maybe we can get that, so being able to be as open and honest with your kids and having those conversations, I think, is the best way to go, and just continuing those conversations so that they understand that.
Mm-hmm. I definitely love that value that it seems like he holds so highly of transparency and active communication to explain that why, and also modeling so that, like, for instance, if you do have, a child who may have a classmate who, may be crossing boundaries time and time again. So, well, what does mommy do? Or what does daddy do? You know what I mean? In those situations, to serve as a role model. So that's excellent. So
for sure.
Thank you for sharing.
You're so welcome.
So we have a question from Grace, who's asking, how do you help parents motivate themselves to help their children while staying at home? There's a lot going on. There can be also, as you were talking about, ensuring that we avoid the quarantine meltdown. Yeah. How do parents kind of avoid it for themselves? You know what I mean? With, like, mental and emotional and physical exhaustion. How do they, stay motivated to take care of themselves as well as their children?
Absolutely. So I will say, for me, I don't watch a lot of news because most of the time it's negative, and I feel like I'm more stressed, and I feel like, when you're watching it consistently all the time, like it gets to you, right? And it starts to stress you out, and so as much as possible, I am watching or listening to something that inspires me. To something that is going to motivate me, to something that reminds me about why I'm doing what I'm doing. because it is easy. You know, if you're someone that writes down goals, or you haven't started writing down goals, start to do that now. Start to write down not only your goals, but why you want to do what you want to do. You know, what is going to happen, you know, as a result of you going through and pushing through with your goals. And for me, when I write down my goals, like the end result is, hey, if I do X, Y, and Z, the long term is, you know, my kids won't have to, you know, suffer some of the things that we've had to suffer, right? So having that why and understanding why you're doing what you're doing is definitely helpful. Again, accountability is so key. So I have a handful of friends, you know, colleagues, that I can reach out to if I'm feeling stressed, or I'm, you know, like trying to figure out how to do something. And I can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm struggling in this area. You know, what do you think about this? You know, what do you think about that? And just understanding, like, part of, you know, the taking time for yourself is so that you can regroup, so that you can, you know, kind of decompress and say, okay, what are the things that, you know, I'm working on? And I know for me, like, if I'm getting overwhelmed and stressed, it's only going to reflect on my kids. I'm only going to take it out on them, and take it out on my husband. And, you know, it's a ripple effect. And so when I get to that point, I understand, okay, why is it that I'm overwhelmed? What is it that I'm doing? And how can I go back, you know, look at my goals and say, am I doing things that are related to my goals and the things that I said I want to do? Or am I being worked back into this, you know, cycle of saying yes to things that have nothing to do with what I really want to do down the line? So number one, like, be unapologetic about taking time out for yourself. I can't say that enough, because that does have a ripple effect on your overall mental health. And so when you feel like, okay, I'm not feeling motivated, like, get into communities. Like, don't go at it alone. You know, I am in different communities, whether it's on Facebook, whether, you know, it's text group messages that we send each other encouraging messages, right? We go in and you're motivated by other people who, in the midst of the pandemic, are killing it out there, right? And so that makes me remember, like, okay, well, if they're doing it, like, there's no reason I can't do it. Let me get myself together and go after it. So I think that it's a combination of surrounding yourself with the right people in the right communities, and also being unapologetic about taking time out for yourself to just breathe.
Great words of wisdom. I know we're wrapping up now, but we have one last question that comes from Nicole, who asks, how do you start the process of homeschooling outside of online research? So you're ready to go. What do you do?
Hey, Nicole, that's a great question. So number one, the number one resource that I would recommend, because it's different, you know, from state to state, county to county sometimes, is hslda.org. It's the Homeschool Legal Defense Organization. They have a plethora of information. You can go on there and look by your state and county to figure out what are the requirements. For us in Charles County, Maryland, we had to fill out a form. We had to, you know, take this form and get everything approved to the county Board of Education. And so there's different steps that you have to take. You have to figure out, what does that look like? You know, do you have, there's another county, I want to say it might be St. Mary's, I'm not sure, but a friend recently started homeschooling, and this was probably in January. So it was before the pandemic, but still in the middle of the school year. But her requirements were slightly different. I think she had to wait 2 to 3 weeks before she could officially pull her daughter out. So I would go to hslda.org and first look at what are the requirements that you need to have in place for your specific county. And then, you know, go from there. They'll have the forms. And then once you figure out what those are, you'll be able to figure out what that form is. We had to actually fill out a form with the intent to homeschool, and then take that to our local county school board of education.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. It has been an absolute pleasure hearing from you with all of your invaluable nuggets of wisdom. You go. Yay, Christine.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun, and I appreciate, you know, you guys doing this, having this amazing platform as well.
Our absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you, participants, for joining us for the National Black Child Development Institute's virtual Lunch and Learn session on practicing self-care and wellness for parents and caregivers with Christine St. Bill. Our next program will be held at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that is our Homeschooling Happy Half Hour with Joy McLevine, who will be doing a child scavenger hunt. So get ready for tons of fun. So we look forward to seeing you again at 4 p.m. EST, and until then, I hope you take care and stay well.